Brazil and the US. Uh, Thank you, Professor Banerjee, again for arranging this, the first Spark sponsored seminar in IIT Guwahati. As we know, SPARC stands for Scheme for Promotion of Academic and Research Collaboration, and it is sponsored by Ministry of Human Resources and Development, Government of India. The idea is to bring in collaborations between the best Indian institutes and the best foreign institutes. It is a win-win situation for all. As we are aware by now, the scheme supports many components. For example, visits, long-term stays of international researchers to Indian institutes, visits by Indian students to foreign laboratories for training, etc. In addition, the scheme also provides funding to jointly develop new courses, write books, monographs, etc. One of the most important aspects of this scheme is the bilateral workshops and international conferences. The idea is that these workshops and the conferences will bring in all the great minds together to discuss the state of the art and take the research forward. I would like to add here that in the first phase of SPARC, 8 different projects from IITG have been funded, and all these projects have been doing very well. In this context, I would like to congratulate Professor Banerjee again for having this webinar. We have been told that the current workshop is an outcome between Universidade Nova de Lisboa, IIT Guwahati, and Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. So I welcome again all the distinguished speakers from Portugal, Brazil, and US, as well as IIT Madras and IIT Guwahati. I am sure that this webinar on deep eutectic solvents for environmental remediation and energy storage is going to be a very successful one, and all the participants will be able to learn a lot from this. I would also like to add here a little bit about IIT Guwahati being me being in the international office as the associate dean. IIT Guwahati is celebrating its silver jubilee year. The institute was established in the year 1994 and has completed its 25 years of glorious existence. Within this short span of 25 years of existence, the institute has been the only academic institution from India that has occupied a place among the top 100 world universities under 50 years of age, published by the QS Young Universities under 50 years. And we have been doing very well in various other international rankings. IIT Guwahati has been ranked at 470 in the QS World Ranking 2021 and ranks third among the leading science and research institutes in India in terms of research citations in QS rankings. Ranked 350 in the overall world category and 6th in overall India category in the academic sector of Nature Index annual ranking 2020. In the subject-wise rank in India, IITG has been ranked within the top 10 in 4 subjects of Nature Index. So with this, I welcome all of you again and have a great 2-day seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Panda. Now I will request Professor Anugrah C, the head of Department of Chemical Engineering, to please share some thoughts about the department.
Good morning. Thank you, Professor Banerjee. On behalf of the Department of Chemical Engineering, I extend all the participants of this workshop a warm welcome. And I hope the 2 days of deliberations will be very useful and satisfying to all of you. So My congratulations to Professor Banerjee and his team for initiating collaboration with University of Goa and starting interaction through research and workshop. It's a very good initiative, and hopefully, in this time of pandemic, the online mode of workshop will be no less than physical workshop. I mean, we have to bear with this pandemic situation, but technology is there. I hope you will have interaction. So I will brief you in 2-3 minutes about the department. The department of chemical engineering at IIT Guwahati is almost 18 years old. It started in 2002, but within short span of time, it has achieved a remarkable place in the world universities. So current QS ranking of the department is 208, which is at par with many old chemical engineering departments in India. And also in terms of the numbers of faculty and student strength, we are second largest after IIT Bombay. Currently, we are 33 faculty members working in all frontier areas of chemical engineering. But our main focus is in energy and materials. So in that respect, the workshop on deep eutectic solvent for energy and environment is a very apt topic for the department and also for the people participants. And we have very advanced laboratories to do cutting edge research, and we are also emphasizing on international collaboration. We are very active in that aspect, which is evident from our international joint master's program with University in food science and technology, and we look for more such joint degree program with other universities also. And we basically are very active in disseminating information and interaction with society in terms of online courses, NPTEL, MOOCs, webinar. So hopefully you will enjoy the organization of Professor Banerjee and his team, and all the speakers are very good in their field. So once again, I extend a warm welcome to all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Singh. Yeah, so myself, Professor Tamal Banerjee, and my colleague, Professor Parthasarathy Gopatada, the workshop coordinators, do all welcome you in this workshop on deep eutectic solvents. And I am very much glad to say that we have got an excellent response. Close to around 230 participants have registered, which has included around 40 from abroad. So this workshop, as you know, is focused on these solvents and called deep eutectic solvents. And from the survey what I have conducted, it seems that around 1/3 of the participants are aware of these solvents. But I guess with the conference and with this particular workshop, if you listen to the different invited speakers, their research areas, you will be knowing more about these solvents, because these solvents now are gaining importance in various application areas, such as in water cleansing or in bioprocesses or as a reaction media or as extraction solvents. So we will cover all these aspects in the next 2 days. I hope you use this time to gather as much information as possible. Other than these lectures, we also have two different workshops, mini lectures. One is based on a pedagogic session on ethical writing, which will be conducted by our colleague, Professor Pallab Ghosh. And another one is we will have a workshop on reactive force field simulation. We will also do a hands-on simulation on a commercial software. So I hope you attend that, and it helps to convey, apart from the regular
scope of this conference, a thing which you can learn and you can execute. So, and the last, we also have a lecture to commemorate the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. So this lecture will be devoted in disseminating information regarding Gandhian thought and his philosophy. This also will be delivered by our own colleague, Professor Archana Pudua. And with this, we all welcome you to this workshop, and I hope this will help you to go forward and execute such knowledge into your own thesis or in your own research area. I'll ask Professor Partho to add up a few if I missed anything. Yeah, Professor Partho, sir.
Thank you, Professor Tamal Banerjee, for organizing this event. This from the Spark team. I welcome you all to join this. I think this will be a very useful seminar or conference. You will be able to attend, and I think it will be helpful because there are few very good interactive sessions will be there. And I encourage all the students or research scholars to interact to gain more knowledge about what is the deep eutectic solvent and why it is very much important in recent days. So without taking too much of time, I welcome you all again, and we are going to start the webinar soon. And I will request Professor Ramesh Kardas to deliver his lecture on this deep eutectic solvent. So in this respect, let me introduce Professor Ramesh Kardas. Professor Ramesh Lakshminarayan Kardas is a professor in chemistry at IIT Madras. His research group focuses on chemical thermodynamics and phase equilibria of industrial important solvent and their mixtures. This group is unique in the country, focuses on in connecting them. Group has substantially contributed to the development of non-conventional and environmentally benign solvent systems and generated extensive database on their thermodynamic properties and structure composition property correlation useful in refrigeration, separation science, and crude oil industry. This will have far-reaching implications in the design of application-specific solvent system. His research group strives to design the task-specific ionic liquids and to provide an important insight into physical chemistry to regulate in solar cell and supercapacitors absorbance for refrigerant system, desulfurization of fuels, and also extraction of metal ions, biomolecules, and value-added products. Dr. Kardas has more than 20 years of research experience and 10 years of teaching experience. So far, he completed 8 projects as PI and co-PI, guided 10 PhD and 15 MSc project students, co-authored 4 patents, 4 book chapters, 165 research publications, which received more than 5,900 citations with H-index of 37. He delivered more than 120 invited talks and guest lectures. I welcome Professor Ramesh Kardas to start his talk.
Now,
ये करने तो हो जाएगा। ये मेरा है या उनका उसका है?
Tamal, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, should I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
So all participants, we are starting with the first lecture. So let him finish the lecture. Then at the end, you will be allowed to ask the questions. Put the hand symbol, those who want to ask. There will be sufficient time for question and answer session. Okay, Professor Gardas, you can start.
Good morning, one and all. And if very good morning, and it's too early if you are in Portugal or in other country. I heard that there are 230 participants, including 40 from abroad. So good morning, early good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever we are. And here, weather in Chennai is very nice. Since yesterday night, it's very heavy rains. And I was afraid that we may have some power cut or Wi-Fi problem or something. Hopefully not, and fortunately nothing happened. Let's hope next 1 hour everything will be smooth, and I am hopeful. Let's go ahead. So the title tells that deep eutectic solvent, as the organizers put the workshops. It's a 2 days workshop. Excellent speakers. I have gone through the profiles and I know most of them, and very excellent topics. So I would congratulate Professor Tamal, Professor Parthasarathi, and entire chemical engineering team at IIT Guwahati and the Spark and all other his team members who made this workshop possible. And I also thank Professor Parthasarathi for reading out entire my CV and its nice introduction. So thank you very much for all of you. And without further delay, let's go into my talk. This will be around 35 to 40 minutes or maximum 45 minutes. Then we will have about 10-15 minutes question answer session before we will go to the Professor Pallab Bose talk on ethics in science. So the deep eutectic solvents, though I put the titles in title introduction, properties and applications, but the most of this talk is designed for the very early career researchers who would like to pursue the research in this topic or just join to work on this topic, or they are planning in 1 or 2 years to work on this. So for them it is very beneficial, I believe so. So it would be very basic. What are these? What is the requirement? And based on my experience on the sister field or the elder sister of this deep eutectic solvents is ionic liquids, which is we call generally novel class of molten salts, or we call it the hybrid salts. So based on my experience on ionic liquids, I have formulated some guidelines or some messages or some tips for the early career researcher who wants to work on deep eutectic solvents. And I also put some how the field has grown and what are the things has not been explored, how to pay attention, and how the field is growing. Some inputs I put and some reading materials and so on. So let's go into the journey of this one. Today is 29, sorry, the date is 20. So 29th, and I'm from chemistry department at IIT Madras. And though this talk is nothing to do with the only chemistry, but this is any field, whether it is chemistry, chemical engineering, materials, mechanical, metallurgy, any field you may be, if you are willing to replace the volatile organic solvents with the most environmental friendly solvents, this talk might be beneficial to give you an overview. So I would like to thank all my research scholars, postdocs, project students, collaborators within the country, outside country, within the department. Though none of the work he's presented belongs to this collaboration except one work. What I'm going to present only one work. Other than that, it's all on ionic liquids. Nevertheless, I would like to thank all these collaborators, students, and funding agencies. So because of them, I'll get motivated and work more. So we'll start with why we need to look for green solvents, why we think they will be alternative, and why we need to look for alternatives. What are these deep eutectic solvents? Why they called deep eutectic? And what is the introduction? How the field has grown, and who are the top people, top country in this field, and what is the progress going on, and what are the guidelines you want to pursue research in this field, what to remember, what are the advantage and what are the disadvantage. To begin the quote, any development to sustain long, you need to think of environmental, social, and economic coexistence. So if you protect the nature, nature will protect you. So each, without compromising the growth of the industry, we have to also think of economy and the environment and the societal needs. So that's how it's called sustainable developments. So these solvents may offer significantly solutions for this kind of development. If you see the petrochemical based solvent market, more than 400 kilogram per year. That's a huge, and every year there is a 4% growth, and the amount they spend for this money is $57 billion every year. And this many petrochemical based solvents is mostly because of demand in automotive and construction industries and now the energy sector. What are these most used petrochemical based solvents listed here? Ethylene, propylene, alcohols, xylene, toluene, benzene, so on. And because of the stringent environmental regulation, we need to look for alternative to these volatile organic compounds, and the demand for bio and green solvent has been arised. So people looked into various green solvents in the literature. If you see, people started looking for bioalcohols, bio-derived glycols, or biodiols. Or you see the recent one is a serine. It's a bio-based alternative for the dipolar aprotic solvents. This is based on cellulose, and its trade name is serine. And this is the now one of the most emerging solvent as a green solvent based on the cellulose. But however, there are plenty of the ionic liquids and deep eutectic solvents are in the category of the green solvents. Please remember, the field is growing very fast, and whether it is ionic liquid, it is about 2 decades, and it has gone to the substantial height. And whether it is a deep eutectic solvents, it is more than 6 years or about a decade. So we can't generalize any statements for this kind of large class of solvents. So one has to be really careful before making general statement for this entire class of ionic liquid, whether it is a green or a non-green. One has to be careful. So look for this one. Now, any chemistry or any science you pursue, when you use any solvent or when you use any process and product design, please keep in mind of the 12 principles of green chemistry. This is the need for the sustainable development. The current topic of deep eutectic solvent may address, if not all 12, at least point 1, prevention, 3, less hazardous chemical synthesis, 4, design safer chemicals, 7, use of renewable feedstock, and the most prominent one is the 5, is the safer solvents and auxiliaries. Similarly, 12 principles of green chemistry, this topic definitely attain more than 3 or 4 of these 12 principles. At least 4 noted here: 2, prevention instead of treatment; 4, maximum efficiency; 5, output pulled versus input pushed; and the 12, renewable rather than depleting. So one has to be careful while selecting the process or the product or the components to keep this in mind of 12 principles of green chemistry and green engineering. So why we need to look for alternative solvents to this petrochemical based and all these things? And you know that whether it is academia or industry, the bulk phase or the solution phase science or solution phase chemistry is dominant over solid state science or gas phase science. So most of the industry and academia work on the bulk phase. The solvent play a major role in many areas of technology, and this provides improvement. At the same time, this represents the large portion of the volatile organic compounds, and which is released to the atmosphere due to their high vapor pressure, and they are also tends to low solubility in water. So because of this, nature, volatile organic compounds have various problems, and they are the major contributor to, if not many problems, at least for air pollution, ozone depletion, global warming, climate change, and many human health related problems. So definitely one has to look for the alternative to this without compromising the other things in the industry. For example, what you call minimum investment, maximum profit, or so on. So what are the strategies to replace this? Best is to avoid them, which is not possible often. Minimize use of them, or use less toxic one, or you look for a renewable solvents which are not derived from petrochemicals, which are derived from the nature, or which are biocompatible, or so on. Use the solvent with low vapor pressure and high boiling point. So they will not lead to the atmosphere just by opening up. So, and it will not give other complications. But please remember, it's not easy to already set the process and replace any of the new solvent with the old one. One has to see the lot of other part of the process and product design. We know the drug design takes how long time, even though this pandemic situation, entire world is working on the vaccine, and how long it will take. Similarly, any existing process in any chemical industry, it's not easy to replace them. They will ask so many questions. I myself was involved in a Petronas project before joining IIT Madras during 2008 to 10. We used to address so many questions, and we got so many good publications and patent. Still they said no, it's not enough to replace and go into the industrial scale. So one has to check thoroughly at the laboratory scale, and then large scale laboratory scale, and then pilot scale, and then the industrial scale. So what would be the ideal replacement? There is nothing called ideal, but how many of them can be attained by the greener solvent or the replacement solvent? What you are thinking? Volatility should be low. Stability, chemical stability and physical stability should be high. It has a high potential to replace or reuse several times. And when you use this in combination with the existing other process, it should not lead to new complications. And above all, for any industry or any business, low cost and high yield. If not all, one has to address all of them. So when we look for alternative solvents for any developed or existing methods, what are the challenges we face? The biggest challenge is we need a different nature of the greener solvent, aprotic, protic, different polarity of the greener solvent, low polarity, high polarity, different basicities of the solvents. It's not enough. We need the combination of them. So the major challenge is you need to have a more than one unique property, or you are looking for a solvent having a combination of unique properties. So one property is good, it's not enough. It may lead another complication. So we need to look for a solvents which has a set of good properties or the required properties and will not lead other problems. If you see the Kamlet-Tart plot of the common protic and aprotic solvents, we generally use in laboratory and the industry, non-polar solvents like toluene, benzene, hexane, or the polar solvents like THF, DMF, DMSO, or polar protic solvents like alcohols or acids and so on. So you see the spectrum is big, the large, and you see so many solvents available for a academician or for an industrialist when you see the Kamlet-Tart plot of basicity versus polarity. Whereas the more environmental friendly or the less toxic, the list is very small, not enough. And it's our duty as an academician or as a scientist to fill this entire spectrum with large number of solvents which are more and more environmental friendly or less and less complicated or less and less toxic. So we need to look for a large pool of solvents which fill this entire spectrum. Then one can think of replacing these solvents. For example, if you want to replace any common aprotic solvent having polarity high and basicity high, you don't have. So one has to look for this one, and as the petrochemical solvent based market is growing and the environmental regulations are getting strict, it is further and further required to look for many alternatives, and some of the alternative will be, as I told you, ionic liquids and deep eutectic solvents. Though I'm not going to talk much about ionic liquids here, except 1 or 2 slides at the end, we'll talk more about deep eutectic solvents. So the talk is based on these 3 literatures. One book published in early 2019 or came to the market in late 2018 or the early 2019, I believe. And this is from a famous author, Marcus, and this is from the Springer. And one of the early reviews, one is in Chemical Society Review, published in 2012, and this is a RSC journal, and the ACS journal Chemical Review, published in 2014. You see the number of citations received so early, within 6 to 8 years, it's already crossed 1700 or 1500 citations for a single paper. That itself shows the how popularizing this field and how fast it is going on. So the most of the content I read from these 3 materials, and I copied from there. So I have not cited in every slide, but I cited in the beginning and with this one. And only some material has been taken from open literature, but mostly based on these 3. So I recommend anybody who would like to know more about this field or would like to start research on this field, probably these are the 2 reviews and a book to start this field. I also noticed this left-hand side book. I already told the Springer one, which came early 2019. There is another book in the market which came late 2019. However, I didn't have access to this book. I have not gone through this. This shows that field is how growing and getting attention. There are so many other books, chapters not dedicated to deep eutectic solvent. There are a couple of books on deep eutectic solvents for a specific applications, but these are the only 2 books I found. Entire book is dedicated to this field. Probably 1 or 2 more maybe there I missed. But if you see the literature search in SciFinder, you understand how exponentially this field is growing, especially in the last 3-4 years. There are more than 4,000 publications already on deep eutectic solvents. I searched the term deep eutectic solvent as a full in a SciFinder, but there may be more using this concept, but I focused only on those who used this word, either title or abstract or in the keyword. So it shows more than 4,000 papers for the field which cited started in 2002 or 3 or 4 from the JACS paper of Andrew Abbott, and today more than 1,000 papers per year. That is the tremendous growth in just 6 to a decade or so. Not only the publication, not only the academia, this has been already started going to the industry. So the many people are not publishing their research and they have extraordinary results. They are just going for a patent, and they may develop the process and product design, or they go for the industrial applications. So close to 470 patents already there are in the accepted stage or the publisher stage. I believe there may be so many in pipeline. There are plenty of reviews on exact this topic. There are so many conference articles, book chapters. Other than these 2-3 books, whatever I told, the book chapters are enough. And I found about 5 to 6 books on this field. And there are so many virtual issues in very important journals like Journal of Physical Chemistry or Fluid Phase Equilibria, or so. They are publishing special issue on DES. So there is no doubt by looking at this data and the growth in the last decade or so, it is the future, and especially for academicians and those who closely want to work on industrial chemistry or industrial chemical engineering, this is the field. If you see this, this was from the SciFinder, and now I'm presenting this next few slides from the Scopus. There is a small discrepancies based on the search term and maybe based on the database. So the SciFinder shows about 4,000 papers. Well, Scopus is showing around 3,886 papers, and China has contributed around 29% of these papers, around 1130. And surprisingly, there are many researchers in India, many affiliations. I found more than 35 to 40 affiliations are working on deep eutectic solvents in India. And it is the third in the world now, and very soon this will go to the second one. It's going to be Iran in this field. And we are contributing from India around 7% of the documents on deep eutectic solvents. But you see, many Asian countries are coming up in this field, like Malaysia and other countries, and European countries. I was aware of Portugal because of the Coutinho and Mara and Isabel Marucho's group in Lisbon and in Aveiro. But I also see some other European countries are also working actively in this field. UK, we know that's where Andrew Abbott and all these people started, but now you can see France and Italy and Netherlands. So definitely this field is growing and significantly growing, and in India also growing. If you see which kind of journals this 3,800 are published, you see mostly general chemistry or physical chemistry or chemical engineering. So the dominated field for this topic is physical chemistry, chemical physics, and the chemical engineering. And you see astonishingly the ACS Sustainable Chemistry and Engineering, which is the new journal and very good impact factor and published with the very rigorous review process, have tremendous papers in this, and also in green chemistry. So the green chemistry papers in the last 5 years or so, and the ACS Sustainable Chemistry will definitely tells that this would be for the future, for the sustainable development, because that process is very rigorous. I'm aware as one of the reviewer of these journals and one of the author for this one. Some more journal which I couldn't see in the left hand side, I put it in the down: chemical communication and industrial engineering, chemistry research, separation and purification technology, Journal of Physical Chemistry B. So these are the topmost journals where this area is published, and some of these journals have published virtual special issues. For example, Journal of Physical Chemistry B and Fluid Phase Equilibria, and so on. If you see the field, as I told you, the physical chemistry and the chemical engineering is dominated, but other parts, other sections of the chemistry also people using, like catalysis or organic synthesis or other field. And the chemical engineering, other than chemistry and chemical engineering, the material science, environmental science, energy sector people, biochemistry people, even pharmacy and agriculture. So it has been touched of various fields. So one may ask, how come a single topic or a single field can get attention from so many fields, so many subjects, and so many subject areas? The answer is simple, that as I told you in my early slide, the bulk phase science or the solution phase science is more dominant. And whenever you are using the solution phase or liquid phase, you are using solvent. And whenever you are using a solvent, there is a scope to replace this solvent with the better solvents or environmental solvent. And that is the reason people have been using these deep eutectic solvents as alternative to this. Let's go into the little bit detail. And I put some more text in many slides. Don't worry, you need not to read everything. I read something for you and I will talk. and don't make any notes now, just pay attention and listen. I already shared the slides with organizers, and if you request them, they will share. There is nothing unpublished work or nothing confidential here. Everything I have taken from the literature. So I have no problem if organizers share all slides with you. So the deep eutectic solvents are a certain class of liquids at ambient condition, their binary composition of two components, each of which has a melting point above the dip. So what are the three things we have told here? It should be in liquid at ambient condition. It should be made up of two components, and the melting point of the resulting liquid should be lower than both of the constituents. So this is the general starting, and one can go to the definition from the Marcus book or other early definitions. The deep eutectic solvents are binary mixtures of a definite composition of two components, one of which being ionic, and that yield liquid phase at ambient conditions, preferably at or below 25 degrees Celsius. See, from the above definitions, what below definition is telling that the composition should be definite and one of which should be ionic. Then you can have this deep eutectic solvents, and the resulting liquid should be the solvent should be in the liquid state, or the material should be in the liquid state at ambient. However, this is not a strict guideline or the strict definition of this. There are some deviations, but this is a thumb rule to be called as a eutectic solvent or a deep eutectic solvent. I will go further to tell why the deep term came and all these things we will see in the next few slides. And we know the phase diagram and eutectic mixtures we have studied several places or early in graduation stage. It is similar to that. What is the difference here is one of which should be ionic, one I told here, and this is also not hard and fast, it's a thumb rule. And this dotted line is a theoretical line or ideal line, or basically it is just like a x1 t1 plus x2 t2. That is, x1 and x2 are mole fractions of component 1 and component 2, or xa at ta and tb are the melting points of a and 2. So whatever you get this, let's say for example, if it is at equimolar 0.5, it would be like melting point of 1 plus melting point of A plus melting point of B by 2. That should be generally theoretical or ideal. It need not to be. But the difference between that and this eutectic point we may call is a depression in freezing temperature, or we call here delta TF. This makes to define them as a eutectic mixture. If this delta TF is large, how large? It depends. Some people say it should be more than 100. Some people say it should be okay if it is, even if it is less than 100. But the basic definition here tells that the resulting composition should be liquid at the or near around ambient conditions. So even though this difference is not 100, but still if they are liquid at ambient condition, may be considered as a deep eutectic solvents. There are variation of the definitions. When you go that when as the field develops, the definitions are keep changing. So the larger the interaction between these two components, the larger this depth. And the term DS refers to liquid close to the eutectic composition of this mixture, and that is the molar ratio of the components which gives the lowest melting points. So this is the eutectic mixture. However, here, if you can see my cursor, in all these regions you have a liquid, and it might be near ambient temperatures, but the composition is different. So to use the term deep, what the author of the book, Marcus, said, it should be the lowest point. So below any composition will not give lower melting temperature than this one. And that composition, if you find out, you call that at that composition, the resulting liquid as a deep eutectic solvent. One can combine all these conditions and make a what you call the systematic definition. As I told you, this definition earlier, it should be a combination of two components, and the melting point of the resulting liquid should be much below than the two components. And but this formation of this DES can be obtained by simply mixing together of these two safer components. It should not lead complicated or the reactions. It should be non-reactive or should not give the explosive reaction or the side products like this. It should be, most probably it should be renewable or biodegradable, and usually these used are quaternary ammonium salts which act as a hydrogen bond acceptor and with the suitable hydrogen bond donor. So far I was telling two components A and B. Now I am telling hydrogen bond acceptor and hydrogen bond donor, and the mole fraction should be, mole ratio should be appropriate such that it will form eutectic mixture. Even there will be several mole fractions which can form eutectic mixture, but to be called the deep eutectic, the melting temperature should be the lowest of all possible combinations lead to the eutectic mixture. So the term we use, the hydrogen bond donor and hydrogen bond acceptor, we know that in order to form any hydrogen bond, there must be a hydrogen donor and there must be a hydrogen acceptor. Both should present. So, and the donor in hydrogen bond is usually a strong electronegative atom such as nitrogen, oxygen, or fluorine that is covalently bonded to the hydrogen, for example here. And the hydrogen acceptor is an electronegative atom of neighboring molecule or ion that contain a lone pair that participate in the hydrogen bond. Example I have shown here. So there are general guidelines to be called as a hydrogen bond donor and acceptor, but the depending on the circumstances or the depending on the surrounding molecule, same molecule can be act as a hydrogen bond donor as well as act as a hydrogen bond acceptor. For example, this has been shown here. H2O can be a hydrogen bond donor as illustrated in water ammonia, this one, or same H2O can be a hydrogen bond acceptor if it is in case of water and amide. So this is a basic chemistry and it is preliminary and we know all about this. But this is the basis to understand why HBA and HBD form deep eutectic solvent. And you want, as I told you here, you want this delta TF should be larger and larger. It depends on the capability of HBA and HBD to form a hydrogen bond. If both are large, the interactions are larger, the chances are very high that delta TF. This is a thumb rule. So, as I told earlier, the DES, for the formulation of this DES, to have one component in the binary mixture should be hydrogen bond acceptor. Usually this is an ionic component with anions such as chloride or bromide or other fluoride or other things. And the other component should be hydrogen bond donor. Usually these are organic molecules such as amides or alcohols or carboxylic acids or so on. It is understood from the large set of the results and the literature search that DES tries to keep the identity of the components which interacts via hydrogen bonding, and though DES formed through the hydrogen bonding between HBA and HBD, there will be no covalent compound between them is formed. This is the very general statement. There might be any exceptions, but I couldn't find any exception for this, and looks like this is generally accepted that In DS, no covalent compounds between them is formed. And the optimal ratio, please recall this word optimal. There may be several ratios of HBA and HBD lead to eutectic solvent, but to be called as a deep eutectic, as I told you several times, it should be optimal to have the minimum melting temperature of these two components. The optimal ratio of HB and HBD that forms eutectic depends on the mutual hydrogen bonding ability of the components. So this is what we have understood so far, and these are the general hydrogen bond donors and hydrogen bond acceptors. These are usually ionic compounds, usually collinium tetraalkyl ammonium based, and mostly having chlorides. This is from one of the review paper. And the hydrogen bond donors can be urea, most studied one, glycols. Now it's emerging, glycols and glycerols and acids and so on, amides. People are exploring new and new class. The general mode of this preparation of these deep eutectic solvents, it's very simple, as I told you. Just simply mix. If both of them are solid, your HBA and HBD, if both of them are solid, and try to mix them in a prescribed mole ratio, heat the mixture at moderately, probably between 60 to 100 degrees Celsius for few hours, and until that entire mass converted into homogeneous liquid mixture, cool it, and your deep eutectic solvent is ready. It's very easy to synthesize or to prepare. If out of these two components, if one is liquid, then try to dissolve the appropriate molar ratio of the solid component in the liquid and heat it little bit moderate for some time and cool it, and your deep eutectic solvent is ready. What will happen if both of them dissolve in water? Some people use this method also. They dissolve them individually and then mix it at the appropriate mole fraction, stir it, then they remove the water under vacuum or freeze drying or the dry resulting deep eutectic solvents. There are various methods, and popularly known methods are presented here. Simple fusion method, solvent evaporation method, hot melting and cooling method, freeze drying method. So you might have seen that synthesis is not difficult. Synthesis is very easy. So what is the difficult? Probably purifying or probably characterizing and handling. That we will talk a little bit later. So the general formula, if one want to write the general formula of deep eutectic solvents, written here. The cation is in principle tetraalkyl ammonium or phosphonium or sulfonium cation, and the X is here the Lewis base, generally halides, and the complex anion species of this halide ion between, and it will be either Lewis acid or Bunsen's acid Y. The Z here presents the number of Y molecules that interacts. So this is most acceptable general formula of deep eutectic solvent. And, as I told you, the synthesis method is easy. You can use any of these four methods to synthesize deep eutectic solvent. If you see the types of the deep eutectic solvent, they are largely classified based on the nature of the complexing agent used. More or less, all are same if you see the 1 and 2, except the hydrated ion. You can see that in the subsequent. The type 1, you see the metal halides with the quarter MClX I wrote, and this can be zinc, aluminium, iron, or anything. With the quaternary ammonium salt, the type 1 determined. However, these were type 1
just wait, all participants. There are some issues in the network.
By using hydrated metal halide and colloidal chlorides, and in this kind of things the metals can be cobalt or copper or nickel or so on things. This is the type 2, but the most famous one or most studied one and most used one are type 3. The type 3 eutectic solvents, deep eutectic solvents formed by the chlorine chloride and the hydrogen bond donor have been interested due to their ability to solvate the wide range of transition metal species, including chlorides and oxide. And the range of hydrogen bonded donors have been studied for this class, and this D is formed using amides, carboxylic acid, alcohol, so many are there. I can show you, this is the one I showed you earlier, and all or the most of them this considered to be class 3 deep eutectic solvent. And this type 3 deep eutectic mixtures or deep eutectic solvent or the eutectic mixture depend on the formation of the hydrogen bond between this halide anion of the salt and the hydrogen bond donor, where the hydrogen bond donors may be multifunctional, and the eutectic point tends to towards usually in 1:1 molar ratio, but there may be other things also people have noticed, but the mostly in 1:1. People have chose 1:2, 2:3, 1:3, and so on. And the depression in freezing point is in this class is related to, in general, mass fraction of the HBD in the fraction. So what this will, as you increase the HBD's mass fraction, the melting temperature of the eutectic mixture is going down and down up to the certain stage. But that is a very general statement. As I told you, the class 3 is most studied. I didn't talk much about the class 4, where you see it's opposite, almost opposite of the class 1, where you have a metal chloride here as you are going to use them as HBA. So it is slightly difficult, but there are some examples on this one. If it is formed zinc chloride, if you see the zinc chloride here was in HBD and here is in HBA, depending on the counter HBD and all these things. So if one would like to generalize the important unique properties of this deep eutectic solvent, the most important one, easy to prepare and relatively unreactive with water. You can have a choice of biodegradable HBA and HBD or the natural HBA and HBD. Relatively, they are cheaper or less costly. They have potential to replace volatile organic compound. They have negligible vapor pressure, large liquid range, and flammability is very, very, very low or non-flammable, and they are high solvating capacity, varieties of the structure possible, and above all, you can tune for the specific application by judicious selection of HBA, HBD, and their composition. You can tune for the bulk properties or the make them ready for the specific applications. I put little bit, are they better than ILs? Yes, in certain terms they are better, especially in case of cost, biodegradability, they are better. And where they have to improve further compared to ionic liquid is the ionic liquids, due to their ionic nature, they have wide electrochemical window and high ionic conductivity.
Yeah, sorry,
So
Ramesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes more.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. So we'll go. So these are the few more ionic compounds, mostly tetraalkyl ammonium, and a few more hydrogen bond donors. Why I put to look around the more components, especially glucose and alcohols, cresols, phenols. So people are trying various new ones, and even though deep eutectic solvents have smaller electrochemical window or smaller ionic conductivity compared to ionic liquids, but still they shows tremendous applications in metal deposition or other electrochemical and energy storage materials. And as I told you, the physical properties of these liquids DES are depend on the hydrogen bond donor and can be tailored. So hydrogen bond acceptor also has a role, but it is less significant compared to the hydrogen bond donor. So most of the physical properties can be tuned by proper selection of HBD and the composition. So this is the only one work among the few works we published on this field. We have synthesized DES using benzyl trimethyl and benzyl tributyl ammonium based chloride based deep eutectic solvent. This was the first of this kind of using this one with the various glycols, and we showed some tremendous applications. And we usually measure all the thermophysical and properties of this one. Using these properties are very, very essential when you would like to design for the specific application or when you would like to develop the models. And these are the few applications in the literature search. You see deep eutectic solvents are getting more and more attention in catalysis and drug solubilization and the electrochemical energy storage, and mostly on the extractions. And you see the gas absorption and extraction of the metal species. This is getting more and more attention. But what are the one has to pay attention about this DES is a purification stage. The starting component should be as pure as possible to avoid further purifying with the external components or the solvents. The composition should be judicious. As I told you, even if you get a eutectic solvent, please look around the nearby the composition screening to get the deepest melting point or the lower melting point. The characterizations usually people do by melting temperature, but one can check by the spectral profile of NMR, IR, or other thermal profile to look that there is no characteristics of the starting component like HBA and HBD's thing. The storage is usually they are not very hygroscopic, but it's better to store them under vacuum or under inert atmosphere of nitrogen. And as I told you, the choice of HBA and HBD should be judicious. It should be from the nature derived or biocompatible. I couldn't find many papers addressing on the toxicity of this one, but those who are working on should also think of assessing the toxicity of this ionic deep eutectic solvent. Viscosity might be an issue for many applications where heating, stirring, and transporting is involved. But there is a possibility of using this DES in combination with other solvent? I put a question mark. I asked a question to Andrew Abbott this in 2017. I will put it in that other slide, next slide. One has to also look for the reusability and the recyclability of these solvents. And one need to check thoroughly the macroscopic properties like thermal profile and bulk properties, especially the polarity and melting temperature and the other conductivity, viscosity, other related properties. However, to understand them thoroughly, one has to go through the microscopic properties through spectroscopic techniques or through computational models. This was the first time I heard about deep eutectic solvents in a regular lecture by Andrew Abbott. He's a veteran in this field. This was a Faraday discussion on ionic liquid and molten salts in 2017 in Cambridge. I asked him one of the question that if you want to address the viscosity issue and use the mixture of this DES with organic solvent, is that be a binary mixture called that solvent and DES, or will it be a ternary mixture called that solvent HBD and HBD, or it's a quaternary if water is available? So he responded very nicely. It's a complicated and one has to thoroughly study, but what I understood, what I liked his answer in this line, the extent to which a system will be homogeneous or heterogeneous depends upon the solute's ability to hydrogen bond compared to the ability of hydrogen bond donor in the DES. So one has to pay attention of this hydrogen bond ability of the HBD when you use for another solvent and all this. I also asked one more question or couple of questions during tea break, but at the time the field is growing, one has to look for this, and one has to look for the dissociation constant, all these things when you want to look for alternative. I'll skip these slides. These are the one we are working on ionic liquid for desulfurization and CO2 absorption and electrolyte in supercapacitor, cyanide sensing, pre-treatment of biomass and extraction of metal of e-waste. Why I presented this here, in future we would like to check and compare the capability of ionic liquid and the deep eutectic solvents. Hopefully we will be ready in year or couple of years so once this pandemic is over. And to summarize my talk, there are large use of petrochemical based solvent market and one has to look for alternatives, and alternative can be biosolvents or environmental friendly solvents, ionic liquids and DES. Because of their combination of unique properties, these have a high potential to replace them, and any research related to energy, water, food and health where solvents are being used, one has to look for replacing them with the environmental friendly, and one has to study their thorough physical profile and for the growth of that field. And this is the hierarchy of researcher efficiency, one knows. So this is popularly known as a 7R hierarchy, and one has to remember this. And I would like to thank all my group. You can ask question now or you can write to me later on. And as I told you, this is for the preliminary, only for introduction of DES, those who would like to start and compare some guidelines. And I would be happy to answer a few questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Gardas, for a wonderful introduction regarding deep eutectic solvents and its extraction and other aspects. So I will now put this session open, and I'll ask any question, one or two questions we can take up. You can raise the hand. There is a hand symbol in the middle panel. Then I will put you or convey you to the speaker. Anybody? Is there anybody who wants to ask? So based on your questions only, we will give you certificate. If you don't ask, there will be no certificate. Okay, so it seems that yeah, there is no question. I have a question, Ramesh.
Yeah, go ahead, Kamal.
So is it always?
Hello, Kamal.
Hello. Okay, I think our colleague Anki has one question. Anki, please go on.
Professor Ramesh, it's excellent talk. Because we have some experience with the classical molecular dynamics and the density functional theory. We often use these techniques, right? So just is a curiosity question. I mean, where do you think that actually the simulations can play a major role in making the deep eutectic solvents a reality for a practical application?
Yeah, it's a very good question and a very general question. It would be easy for me to answer in general because of the experience from the ionic liquid field. The major challenge this field to go to the industrial level is reusability and the recyclability. So even though you find the best solvent, other than other complications of the cost or the toxicity, see, most of the people have not explored the toxicity of this solvent yet, claiming that polonium or the other one are bio-derived or the biocompatible, but still it's worth to explore. That is one thing. The toxicity profile has to be explored thoroughly. And the second thing is, there are hardly few papers address the recyclability, or if not complete recycle, at least we can think of reusability, or we call circular approach. Can you put back into the system again by taking your application either by extraction or other things. So one has to, if one really want to grow this field and to take it to the next level to the industry, one has to address their toxicity profile, and one has to address their recyclability or reusability or the circular economy. And other than that, it is generally told that the choice of HB and HBD or simple elementary science or elementary chemistry, one has to pay attention of the capability of hydrogen bond, making hydrogen bond capability of your HBA and HBD. And of course, one can say, is it a trial and error method? Definitely not, but the field grows that way. And the fourth problem done by many people is they generally go for 1:1 or 1:2 or 1:3 or 2:3, a specific molar ratio. One has to thoroughly check the nearby composition. One should be ready to work on more compositions nearby eutectic point, whatever you are thinking. So then this can address. So I hope I answered you slightly on in general way.
Yeah.
Address these four things to be ready for working on nearby your deep eutectic points, to be really look for, is it really deep eutectic or other composition, toxicity, reusability and recyclability.
Okay.
And I think handling and storing is not much difficult compared to the ionic liquids.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Ramesh, we have another question. Yogesh,
Yes, sir.
IIT Jammu, ask the question.
Yeah, audible.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Ramesh. Thank you for the talk. Actually, can you tell me about the lifetime of this eutectic solvents that is there any lifetime kind of limits?
People have been stored it for several months. I'm not sure about several years or so, but in our lab itself, we have stored it for a few months. So I would say they are very stable. Of course, one need to study if you keep them in open atmosphere, will they take moisture with the time, or will they see in general, when we say in ionic liquid case, the back protonation can happen, or the question arises if it takes little bit moisture or water or some dissolved gases from the the nature, will it change their hydrogen bond capability and will it become a mixture? So one has to study thoroughly, but what literature search shows, I don't have much experience handling them, but what literature shows that they are quite stable and very stable. And when you talked about lifetime, I was thinking about the bulk. Are you talking any other lifetime?
No, because it's a kind of solid or liquid that are mixed together. There are solids are dissolved in the liquid at certain temperature, and then if we are using it, the solution, the suspension at a different temperature, then there must be some sedimentation or precipitation kind of thing will happen. So
usually any eutectic mixture, whether it is a deep eutectic solvent or a traditional eutectic mixtures, once they form due to certain kind of a hydrogen bonding. Yes. After forming, even if you heat it, they will not precipitate out. They will stay as a deep eutectic solvents. Of course, one has to check thorough thermal profiles, but nearby temperature, even plus or minus 20 degrees Celsius or plus 20 degrees Celsius, people have been studied. It won't go back to the precipitate or the solidify or this not. Okay. This is a general overview from the literature.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Professor, for giving a nice talk. I'll ask the question later. So, yeah, I hope I could have given a memento, but because of this nature of workshop, give it some time later. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. So now we move to the next lecture. The next lecture title is Ethical Guidelines in Scientific Writing. So we have with us Professor Pallav Ghosh
our colleague in IIT Guwahati who works in the application of colloids and interfaces in large-scale industrial undertakings such as petroleum recovery, manufacturing of heavy chemicals, and coating processes. Many of you must not be knowing, but I should share this. He is the first faculty member of this Department of Chemical Engineering, and he joined way back in 2002. And his two widely circulated books are textbooks, I would say. One is on numerical methods in C++, and one of the only kind in a book which is known titled as Colloids and Interfacial Science. Both of these are textbooks and are widely used in Indian curriculum. So now I'll request Professor Pallab Ghosh to present this particular title and his talk, Ethical Guidelines on Scientific Writing.